Okay, I hope this is working. All right, let me know if you guys can hear me okay. If you are watching this, this is a posted video. And this is our third live stream of the day, but nonetheless, we have a lot of stories to talk about. So make sure to turn on your notifications. Make sure to please like this video or leave a comment. It helps out a ton. And whenever there's breaking news, like I said, I will always get to you guys as soon as possible. So thank you guys for joining. If you are joining this live stream, make sure to please like the stream so the other subscribers can see what's going on here. Now, here is my disclaimer right at the top of the show. This is the first failed attempt. The big one is really going to be tomorrow. So there was an expectation this was most likely going to happen as far as this first attempt of getting to the Senate floor and trying to get DHS funding passed. But as of right now, it's just been reported that this vote has failed, and we have the numbers. So DHS shut down all but certain after failed Senate vote. As far as who voted for what, and by the way, we're also going to go through some other stuff. We're going to talk about some more Minnesota stuff. Governor Tim Walz commenting on the withdrawal, if we're going to call that. And also we have comments back and forth from politicians as to their issues with Homeland Security, their issues with the SAVE Act. I mean, it's really ramping up. Every single politician is posting like crazy right now on their social medias. So here is the breakdown from Eric Daughtry. Breaking: the U.S. Senate has just rejected a bill to keep DHS funded, 52-47. So keep that in mind. That's the initial number right now. Meaning it will partially shut down by the end of this week unless something changes. John Fetterman is the lone Democrat voting to advance it. I don't think anyone will be shocked by that at all. Fetterman said he would be supporting, or not supporting, I guess is a better way to describe that. Utterly insane. This does not impact ICE, which was fully funded by the big, beautiful bill. So let's go ahead and see what Politico is reporting. And again, that's sort of the thing that Republicans are trying to point out, and even Mr. Fetterman is saying, this does not affect ICE, but what this does affect is the government shutting down, and he doesn't want to be responsible, a Democrat, for causing this. Now, again, some Democrats are shifting the blame and saying, well, it's the Republicans doing this, so not worried. Again, you guys can decide how you feel about that. Where this gets interesting is the polling. Considering 71% of Democrats want voter ID. But nonetheless, this is about the DHS stuff. So, lawmakers are headed for the exits following a failed Senate vote Thursday, all but guaranteeing the Department of Homeland Security shuts down early Saturday morning. The funding lapse, which will hit parts of DHS harder than others, comes as the White House and congressional Democrats have failed to move closer to a deal after trading proposals to rein in immigration enforcement practices in the wake of two high-profile shootings in Minneapolis. Now, keep in mind the timing of all of this. Federal agents are leaving Minnesota, not in totality. It's not every single federal agent is leaving, but a lot of them are. It'll be downsizing. That's according to Tom Homan today. And so I think that could have possibly been the Trump administration somewhat working with Democrats or showing that there is some compliance here, but, we don't know the full details of all of that. And again, it's great to see all of you guys here. Thank you for being here. And make sure to please like the stream, and God bless all of you. Thank you guys so much for making these shows amazing. It's all because of you guys. Democrats called the latest offer from the White House insufficient Thursday and are expected to send a counteroffer. Democrats have been very clear, we will not support an extension of the status quo, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor ahead of the vote. Democrats went on to block progress on a DHS funding bill the House passed last month, which would have been the vehicle for a short-term funding punt or a larger immigration agreement. The procedural vote was 52-47, well short of the needed 60 votes. Prior to the vote, Trump's border czar Tom Homan announced that ICE would be ending its enhanced immigration enforcement. And again, we will be getting to comment right after this from Governor Tim Walz. I think Governor Tim Walz even said, I will help pack your bags, by the way. A step Democrats have called for, but Schumer said Thursday that ICE ICE's abuses cannot be solved merely through executive fate alone. We first and foremost need legislation. Republicans are expected to try to pass at least a 1 week-long stopgap for DHS Thursday afternoon, but because every senator would need to agree to a quick passage, it is expected to be blocked on the Senate floor. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told reporters he thought the White House offer went a long ways towards an agreement, adding, there are a couple of issues, obviously, that they're going to have to work through and work out with the Democrats, and lines that neither side is probably going to be able to cross. Thune added that Democrats are posturing right now, but that progress has been real. So again, I think it was expected this was going to happen. More so possibly symbolically, but nonetheless it happened as far as a non-agreement. With no deal close at hand, the Senate is on track to adjourn Thursday for a previously scheduled 1-week recess. The House also adjourned Thursday for its previously scheduled recess. Though members are on call to return within 48 hours if an agreement is reached, Thune said Thursday if a deal is struck, senators will need to get back to Capitol within 24 hours. All right, so that's where we're at right now, people. The negotiations back and forth. Please share your thoughts and opinions in the either live comments or the posted comments. And I see somebody said, all kayfabe anyway. Kayfabe, a wrestling term known as acting, I guess is the best way. Playing a character. All right, moving forward, again, the Politico article is sort of insinuating that the drawing down of federal agents was a way to show that the Trump administration is listening. They're somewhat compromising. Minnesota, and look, we went through this the last 2 weeks. The talking points were revolving around what has been occurring in Operation Metro Surge. I do not recall a Democrat talking about Operation Catahoula Crunch, or Operation Catch of the Day, or Operation, what's the one in Charlotte? I don't remember what that was called. But it was mainly Midway Blitz in Chicago, some of California, hardly anything out of California, but a lot of it was Operation Metro Surge, which is now downsizing. So again, it looked like the Trump administration was trying to somewhat give a little bit of Democrats what they wanted here, but I guess that's not really working as of right now.
Borders our Tom Homeland says the search of federal agents in Minnesota is ending. Listen.
I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. I'm very pleased to report that this surge operation and our work here with state and local officials to improve coordination and achieve mutual goals, as well as our efforts to address issues of concern here on the ground, have yielded the successful results we have came here for.
And moments ago, the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, responding on social media and saying in part, I'm quoting now, "They thought they could break us, but a love for our neighbors and a resolve to endure can outlast an occupation," end quote.
So again, Mayor Frey getting what he wanted, it should be noted, but still referring to this as an occupation. Now, I am seeing mixed opinions as far as this downsizing. You guys can let me know if you agree with it, don't agree with it. We did get a couple of revelations, though, as far as why this happened. Apparently, it was Todd Lyons who said he wants more federal agents in Minnesota due to protesters, not because they can't do their job with the allotted assets in Minnesota, because there were about 500 to 600 ICE agents already operating in Minnesota. And the number that Todd Lyons cited was there are about 16,000 people in Minnesota that they know of as far as targeting for deportation operations. But the issue that ICE had was that there were agitators. And so Todd Lyons just a few hours ago admitted, I called for federal agents in order to back us up. Now, Tom Homan comes in and says, we've been making some negotiations. I talked to the mayor, I talked to the governor, and it looks like retainers are going to be met. It looks like there will be more cooperation. But Tom Homan also said, I will be staying in Minnesota, and I will be keeping federal assets here who deal with protesters. So there will now be like ICE agents or even Border Patrol who will literally be in Minnesota who are not doing deportation operations. Their job are to protect the federal agents who might face agitators. So keep that in mind.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says the federal government should pay for the damage they caused in his state.
This legislative session needs to be about recovery of the damage that's been done to us. I am also asking our team, and I'm going to make appeals to our federal delegation. The federal government needs to pay for what they broke here. There are going to be accountability on the things that happened, but one of the things is the incredible and immense costs that were borne by the people of this state. The federal government needs to be responsible. You don't get to break things and then just leave.
Okay, so you guys can let me know if you think federal taxpayer money should be going to Minnesota. Now, I do have an update for you guys. Let me just get this for you real quick. Again, commenting back on the DHS funding. Give me 1 second. Yeah, right here. And then we will get back to some more comments.
Sandra, good afternoon. There's going to be a shutdown for just the Department of Homeland Security at 12:0001 on Saturday morning. That test vote needed 60 yeas. There were 52 yeses on this. John Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, was the only Democratic yes. And John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate, he switched his vote to no. That gives him the ability to recall this if they were to get a deal. Just after that test vote went down, you had Katie Britt, the Republican senator from Alabama, come to the floor and try to get what they call unanimous consent, where they agree on the spot, all 100 senators, for a 2-week interim spending bill for DHS, and that was objected to by Chris Murphy.
Yeah, guys, Democrats are playing hardball right now. I did see some other quotations that Democrats would rather have a total government shutdown than even allow for the partial shutdown, and it looks like that is tracking. As far as wanting some sort of reform with either ICE or Border Patrol. Again, all we know is that Democrats have the 10 demands they want. And one of the demands is like no paramilitary police. So Republicans are like, look, we understand you have demands, but some of these demands are unobtainable or they don't really reflect how we would even figure things out together.
Democrat from Connecticut. So this means that there's about 61,000 TSA employees who would not be paid during this shutdown, and also about 20,000 FEMA employees. And because Congress is expected to be out for the next 8-9 days, that means the government shutdown probably runs for at least a week or two.
Whoa.
Now, Democrats, they just put out their legislative text a couple of days ago. You had the White House counteroffer last night. Chris Murphy said that wasn't enough time to turn it around. Katie Britt said, well, you guys should have gotten your proposal on ICE changes a couple of days early. The other factor in this, and Eric Schmidt, the Republican senator from Missouri, was very critical of some of his colleagues. There's the Munich Security Conference that many colleagues are going to fly over there right now. And he said they care more about going to Europe and criticizing American foreign policy than dealing with DHS. Sandra.
Yeah, so I will be keeping you guys up to date as we have been for the last 2 weeks, reporting on this every single day, every single morning. So if you're new here, make sure to please subscribe, turn on your notifications. Make sure to please like the videos. Every single morning we go live, and every time there's breaking news, we also go live. All right, so moving forward, let us get to... Hold on, I think I have it here. Oh yeah, just a very quick update if you guys are unaware. There was a crash yesterday in St. Paul, Minnesota. I did a report on that. We were live. We still don't have any follow-up as far as like, all we know is that the mayor of St. Paul shifted the blame to ICE and said ICE needs to leave. They caused this by creating the mayhem during Operation Metro Surge, but we don't have any other follow-ups or updates. All we know is that according to Homeland Security, the person inside of this vehicle was an illegal immigrant. It was a targeted operation. He fled, he crashed, and he also crashed into 2 other people. Their vehicles, according to Homeland. Let us go here real quick.
I want to say something about the various unfounded complaints I'm hearing about ICE enforcement operations. During the surge operation, ICE has not arrested anybody inside a hospital. We have not arrested anybody inside of a school, an elementary school. We have not arrested anybody inside a church.
Sorry about that.
As a matter of fact, the only ones that disrespected the sanctuary of a church were the agitators that have been arrested and prosecuted. And so far, we have 9 of them. However, those locations are not off the table. I said from day one, there's no sanctuary for a significant public safety threat or national security threat. But as far as those stories about ICE going into churches and arresting people in hospitals, it simply has not happened. And if you have a case where it happened, you let me know. Because all the digging I've done here, I can't find a single one. I want to.
All right, so now I have the comments from Governor Tim Walz for you guys. Again, Governor Tim Walz yesterday said within days, Homeland Security should be leaving Operation Metro Surge. A lot of people call this bluff, but it looks like he was telling the truth, or he knew something we didn't know. Here's what he had to say.
We are cautiously optimistic, as we've said, and that this surge of untrained, aggressive federal agents are going to leave Minnesota. And I guess they'll go wherever they're going to go.
I do need to make a comment on this real quick. I hate cutting these off. Todd Lyons was asked 2 hours ago what happens next, and all he said was his agents will be going back home. Then a follow-up, are you going to be doing another federal surge? And he never really responded to the question. So, again, it should be noted, Todd Lyons was the one who apparently initiated the initial federal surge, but now he's saying he didn't give an answer as to what's going to be the next location. I will do my best to try and figure out where or what might be the next location or mission.
But the fact of the matter is, they left us with deep damage, generational trauma. They left us with economic ruin in some cases. They left us with many unanswered questions. Where are our children? Where and what is the process of the investigation into those that were responsible for the deaths of Renee and Alex? So while the federal government may move on to whatever next thing they want to do, the state of Minnesota and our administration is unwaveringly focused on the recovery of what they did. And there will be many steps in this process, many answers that we still need to get and will pursue. But as we started earlier this week, one of the first things we can do, and what we're focusing on today, is what can we start doing on the economic recovery, the damage that has been done to our economy, specifically to small business owners, and even more specifically to immigrant small business owners, which for every other administration and for most of our history is the epitome of the American dream. Come to this country with nothing and build something to be proud of, build something that creates jobs, build something that creates this incredible diversity and a food scene across this state that is second to none, to entrepreneurship, to the work that they've done. Meeting a few weeks ago down at the Hmong market, and a gentleman who came here and got a food stall, and 3 of his children are now medical doctors that went through American universities to become medical doctors to help make this state the best for healthcare. Those are stories we should be celebrating, not dangerous police chases through peaceful neighborhoods, not little boys in little backpacks being hauled away, wow, and not mourning of parents and family for American and Minnesota citizens being killed on the streets.
Okay, so those were some initial comments. Again, the economic argument has definitely been probably argument number 1 as far as why Minnesota wants the Trump admin out of their state. That was one of the issues they had, trying to sue the federal government or ask a judge if they can limit ICE's ability to do what they need to do in Minnesota. The ICE rejected that. Thank you for the very generous $5 donation from Rockets Red Glare 76. Rocket says, just pointing it out, by taking funding from DHS, the Senate isn't just taking funding from ICE, it also affects FEMA, Secret Service, and Coast Guard. That is correct. In fact, even John Fetterman said, guys, we're voting on something, we're making these talking points, but the vote doesn't affect that. So thank you so much for that. We have another comment from the governor. Let me pull that up real quick.
We obviously know that some of them will stay and sort of go back to business as usual.
And by the way, some agents staying is still a lot of agents. What we know right now, the number was lingering around 500 to 600 ICE agents were in the state of Minnesota. And so the word some could imply we're still up into the thousands plus, or 1,000 plus-ish.
Repositioned around the state, but
Mr. Holman said this week and early next week, I talked to Mr. Holman after his press conference, and he assured me that they are going, all the surge is going, and they're going immediately. So as soon as they can pack their stuff, book a plane, move on, I would volunteer. We will help you get to the airport. We will clear the roads to get you to the airport. I will come over and pack your damn bags if that's what it takes. But I think it does answer the question. And again, this is a trust but verify. I am skeptically optimistic. I have no reason to not believe that when Tom Holman said they will be gone almost immediately. So it'd be my expectation, I think, you know, certainly by the middle of next week, this is back to the 150. So yeah.
All right. And again, Tom Holman, people are pointing out that was not necessarily an accurate statement that every single person is leaving. The main reason why we even had that surge was because, again, it was verified from Todd Lyons, was due to agitators or people going too far. All right, so let us get to the old back and forth like we always do on this channel. Politicians are posting like crazy right now as far as their opposition and why they have issues either with ICE, Border Patrol, and of course the SAVE Act.
Floor, they're talking about different versions of the filibuster that might accomplish that mission, and we believe that desperate times call for desperate measures. So yeah. We have a custom. I don't tell him how to run the Senate. He doesn't tell me how to run the House, but I think he is doing the work and trying to get this done.
Is he? Do you think he's worried about some kind of a backlash? When he talks about it, he seems worried that this will, you know, that it'll waste a tremendous amount of time, or that something negative will come from it. You can hear it in his voice. What do you think that concern is?
Well, yeah. Well, he's a student of the institution. He knows the rules well and how they can be abused by the other side. Yeah. And there is a concern that if you open that up, it could go for weeks and weeks on end, and that it would have an unendable amendment process with no germaneness hurdles to it. And that just means basically that Democrats could potentially throw anything they want on it. But look, we have to see how that plays out. He's got to strategize that with the Senate Republicans. And I can tell you, I mean, our Senate Republican colleagues believe as firmly in this principle as we do. And we're hopeful, we're confident they can get something done over there.
Now, it should be noted, there is one Republican who actually got community noted on X. This is the one Republican I can recall, Senator Murkowski, who is not in favor of the SAVE Act. And this is interesting. This is why X definitely is a platform that I think a lot of people can get behind due to the community note here. So check this out. When Democrats attempted to advance sweeping election reform legislation in 2021, Republicans were unanimous in opposition because it would have federalized elections, something we have long opposed. Now I'm seeing proposals such as the SAVE Act and MEGA that would effectively do just that. Once again, I do not support these efforts. Not only does the U.S. Constitution clearly provide states the authority to regulate the times, places, and manner of holding federal elections, but one-size-fits-all mandates from Washington, D.C. seldom work in places like Alaska. Election day is fast approaching, imposing new federal requirements now, when states are deep into their preparations, would negatively impact election integrity by forcing election officials to scramble to adhere to new policies, likely without the necessary resources. Ensuring public trust in our elections is at the core of our democracy, but federal overreach is not how we achieve this. So that was her initial statement. Soon after, this popped up. Senator Murkowski voted to advance the 2021 voter reform she references here. She was the only Republican to do so. So, yeah, I thought you guys would find that interesting. But again, that is, to my knowledge, the one Republican so far who is not in support of it. But now we're going to go through and hear all the different arguments. I'm sure you guys will realize or notice there seems to be one argument that is lingering over the rest. the inconvenience of getting what you need to vote.
Over the past year, we have seen a
And whether or not you agree with it, we will play both sides.
concerted effort to roll back civil rights, undermine voting access, dismantle social programs, and concentrate power in the hands of the wealthy and well-connected at the expense of our communities. From weakening the Voting Rights Act and advancing voter suppression measures like the SAVE Act, to politicizing the courts and sowing fear and division through actions cause real and disproportionate harm to black communities.
Okay. Moving forward, this is going to be Catherine Clark. Let's see what she has to say. And don't worry, I got a good cross spread of both sides here. I got some Tim Burchett as well.
Republicans aren't worried about non-citizens voting. They're afraid of actual American citizens voting. Why? Because they're losing. Among women, they're losing by 10 points in the upcoming midterms. Because losing is what happens when you tell people you're going to tackle the high cost of living and you turn around and hike their health care premiums. You hike their grocery costs. Also, billionaires can weasel out of paying their fair share. They're trying to say this is a voter ID bill. That's not what's happening here. Let's just look at a typical mom. You guys must know some working mothers. The ones that I hear from across my district and across this country, they are struggling to put food on the table for their kids, working 2 jobs to try and make ends meet, trying to juggle getting their kids to school, maybe catching an occasional game, fearing they're never going to be able to find childcare they can afford, and praying nobody in the family gets sick because they can't afford a doctor either. And now you're going to say to those women, because they got married and changed their names, they have to go down to a clerk and prove they're citizens.
Look, I just want to apologize ahead of time. For those of you who have been tuning into every single one of my live shows, I really appreciate it. If it sounds like or seems like I keep playing the same clips over and over again, like we have heard this now like a lot, I am just trying to simply show you guys these are the mainline arguments, and we sort of saw how it developed into this. And right now, I have heard this argument a lot. This is like the 40th clip I've heard so far, referencing a mother, a mom, or getting married, changing your name, and now it becomes an issue or can be an inconvenience to vote. So again, I am not trying to sound like a broken record here. I'm simply just trying to show you all of the updated clips and what politicians are saying.
Sign affidavits, do this in person. This is a minefield of red tape that you have put in front of women and American citizens and their right to vote. And thanks to the gentlewoman from South Carolina, the so-called champion of women and safe places, this bill will now go into effect immediately, which means primaries that are weeks from now, all of these people are going to be met with the fact they didn't have time or know they had to prove their citizenship. Good luck voting, ladies. And as a kicker, the bill mandates that every state turn over their voter rolls to DHS and Kristi Noem. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is an outrage.
Now, I actually did read through that. She did not mention the reasoning why, and again, whether or not you agree with it. When you read the fine print of the SAVE Act, that would be to look into if there are illegal immigrants who have been implemented in the system, whether on accident or not. This is from Congresswoman Maxine Dexter. The Save America Act isn't saving anyone, she says. Congress should be expanding access to the ballot box, not restricting it. This bill could make it harder for millions of married women to vote if it passes. It's voter suppression disguised in the name of election security. I will be voting hell no.
This is an 80% issue, and by the way, over 70% of Democrats support this. So Democrat elected politicians are totally out of touch. And this is, I think, if you look at 2024 election, It was the return of common sense, and nothing could be more common sense than actually having to prove through photo ID that you are who you say you are to vote in our elections. If we believe in secure elections, this is absolutely something we should do, and you have to do it to check into a hotel, to buy a plane ticket, right? Everybody understands that. Why would the Democrats oppose it? It's interesting it's happening at the same time as we're having this illegal immigration debate in this country, because effectively the Democrats know they can't win elections fairly and they want to cheat. They want people who are here, they've imported people here to vote. They want people to cheat. They want to do ballot harvesting because they know they can't win an election fair and square anymore. So I think this is very important for the Senate to take up, push hard, and let the American people know that we're fighting for them, we're fighting for our republic. All
right. So again, I'm going to try to play you guys both sides here. And just to show you, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of overlap. The vast majority of Republicans are not buying the whole it's inconvenient or it's too hard, the struggle. For Democrats, again, that seems to be their main talking point. Let's move on here. Yeah, let's go to Mr. Tim Burchett.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. I just couldn't help but think about the irony of this. 213 Democrats voted against the Save America Act yesterday. The Save America Act, what does it do? You gotta...
No, and just to be clear, when people are asking, it's not, the SAVE Act did not fail. We haven't gotten to that, but the point I'm trying to make, we're just sort of doing all the different talking points here. If you're just joining, the first round of votes failed for DHS funding, but we still have another vote tomorrow. Right now, politicians should be trying to figure out some sort of negotiations. But still, the talking points are really, it's back and forth as far as the SAVE Act and the DHS funding. Because Republicans want to pass the SAVE Act now.
Prove you're an American citizen and get registered to vote.
Most of them.
And you got to show a dadgum photo ID to vote. And that ID, 213 Democrats used their IDs to vote yesterday. Nobody hollered about racism there. It's just ridiculous, folks. This thing is just about corruption and it's about control. And the Democrat Party ought to be ashamed. I mean, it's just pathetic. That's not any way to treat people. We ought to have safe elections. And they are fighting us tooth and nail. Hopefully we can get enough votes in the Senate and it'll happen, right?
I don't know, Mr. Tim Burchett. We'll see. Tim Burchett of Tennessee. Moving on. This is Correa, Representative Correa.
You like to see ICE continue targeted enforcement of those who are here illegally with criminal records. Do you support that?
Look, what I support is what the president promised the American public. He was supposed to go after the worst of the worst criminals. That is not what he's doing. 70% of the people they've deported don't even have a traffic ticket. Most of the individuals out there that are picking them up are essentially hardworking, undocumented taxpayers.
Okay, so this is another argument that we're starting to hear or is developing into the fold. I'm sure you guys are hearing this, that not every single illegal immigrant that is being deported, they're not the worst of the worst that the Trump administration keeps saying they are. And I'm letting you guys know right now, this is probably going to be another popular talking point, probably next week. In my opinion, I think Kristi Noem, Democrats will try to impeach Kristi Noem, and this is going to get brought up. However, Todd Lyons and the Trump administration keeps noting, when we say violent criminals, that is the worst of the worst. But below that, you can be somebody who robbed somebody, maybe ran like 10 stop signs, then gets pulled over. Maybe that wouldn't constitute in the violent category, but it's still a category in which Americans don't necessarily support if you commit some sort of crime.
But then shouldn't never do that. So the Axios thing is a great example. You know, they admit that the crime is dropping, but then they add that word despite. So they note the numbers, they change the story with the hope that that becomes the narrative for the rest of the discredited media. But this is the great thing about social media. We always say, social media is bad, but that didn't last. Now, in the old days, before X was sold, that thing would have been it would have been the bat signal, the conformity trigger. Like, okay, this is the story you're going to run with. It'll help you explain the number. The Times would do it, the Washington Post, everybody. Republicans, however, they can report real numbers when the Democrats were in power. So they didn't have to do this. You looked at the millions that were streaming in undocumented across the border. You saw the murder rates. You saw the amount of overdoses. You didn't have to fudge it at all. So the Dems, what did they do then? They just avoided those numbers. The media avoided those numbers. They wanted plausible deniability. It's like,
I mean, look, this is unfortunately true because eventually even Senator Fetterman, I mean, he was one of the first Democrats to really come out and say, yeah, I think we messed up. We could have done better. As you guys remember when, or maybe you don't, when President Trump became the president, you know, those were some of the questions that were being brought up to a lot of prominent Democrats, to include Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, asking, you know, what do you think about the border? Could you guys have done a better job? Some Democrats will say yes. Some you don't really get a direct answer. But again, you guys can go look at those numbers and you can decide if you think they were good or bad.
Hey, as long as we're in the dark, you know, we can't say we knew and did these policies anyway. Also, if they actually admitted to these numbers, they'd have to abandon their policies or they'd be just psychotic and throw themselves off a bridge. But it's still a challenge for Trump. That's the thing. He said, I guess I got to sell it. Yeah, that's the point. You got to sell it because we just explained to you that they're not going to buy it. The media is going to do everything they can. Those are amazing numbers.
Amazing.
And they're going to make them look bad. So you have to persuade and to reason at the same time, but not to the media, to the people. And we're probably the only network and the only show that is saying directly what's going on. And if you look at, other places, they'll.
All right. So again, Axios had to actually delete that article after getting called out on the internet. Crime plunges in major cities despite Trump's crackdown rhetoric. Again, like I had mentioned to you guys before, you're going to be hearing a lot about the crime rates and connected to illegal immigration. A lot. Here is Eric Schmidt. Senator Eric Schmidt.
Okay, the Democrats are about to shut down DHS. That means FEMA, that means TSA, Border Patrol, ICE. They don't want to fund that now because they're trying to make some political statement, which is ridiculous, and have these ridiculous demands that would kneecap ICE. We're not going to do it. But the other interesting fact is they're doing it. They're going to shut it down on Friday, and then they're going to head to Europe and go to Munich and badmouth American foreign policy to Europeans. So it's a joke, but that's what you kind of see here in Washington.
It's being reported right now by Politico that is happening right now as we source back. They are saying at the end of their article there are already people who are about to fly out. So you guys can let me know how you feel about that. Moving forward. Here is Representative Larson. He says the so-called SAVE Act does nothing to save America. It makes it harder for millions of citizens to vote, including married women. I think we need to have some polling on married women and see, what they think about this. Students, troops, and Native Americans. Trump wants to nationalize our elections to silence your voice at the polls. Let's see what he has to say.
The so-called Save America Act actually will restrict your vote. It will not save America. What it will do is prevent people from voting. I served in Congress with John Lewis, and his number one goal was to make sure that every American had access to the polls, because we understand that that's how a true democracy functions. That's not what's going to happen on the floor tomorrow, and why I'm voting no. Trump's continued efforts to nationalize this election, to make sure that he uses ICE and the military around our polling places to try to intimidate people and prevent them from voting, is yet another step that the so-called Save America Act helps to foster and bring in. That's why I'm voting no, and why everyone should pay close attention to what's happening here, right in the United States Congress.
And that's what we do. We pay close attention, and we look at all the sides here. Because again, depending on what your algorithm is, I'm sure some of you may have never even known that some of the statements are out there. You would just assume somebody doesn't support the SAVE Act, But why don't they support the SAVE Act? Like I told you guys before, it seems a lot of the contention revolves around married women. And I am not trying to invent or create a narrative. As you guys know, we've been doing this for the last 7 days in a row, and this seems to be the constant argument.
The goal is to pretend they do not exist, while perpetuating the fiction that Democrats are opposed to funding for disaster relief, or cybersecurity, or the Coast Guard, or Transportation Security Administration, or Secret Service, when nothing could be further from the truth. The goal...
All right. Let's move. Yeah, so this was posted by Kamala's page, her Gen Z media page, known as Headquarters. We already covered the Kamala Gen Z page. I don't know what else to call it because that's what Kamala Harris referred to it as. It's the new hub for Gen Z media. So let's see what they are posting. This is Representative Subramaniam.
The supporters of this bill claim that undocumented immigrants are overrunning our elections and voting in droves, but I'll give you an example of the reality. We actually did a study in Virginia of all the election irregularities over 20 years. And how many instances of non-citizens voting do you think we found? Zero. We found zero. And another study in analyzing Heritage Foundation data found that this is pretty much non-existent between 1999 and 2023 in the United States. They are solving a problem that does not exist. And what this bill...
And in yesterday's show, I think I showed you guys in Alabama, there was a decent amount of some fraud and in other states. So again, I ask this question every time. Even if there was zero, would you still want this to be passed? And I press 1 if you would still want this passed, even though there's zero.
Does do is make other problems and make it harder to vote. It undermines our democracy, makes it harder for military voters who move a lot, harder for families impacted by natural disasters who lose documents, and harder for the nearly 70 million women who have changed their name after marriage and have birth certificates that no longer match their photo IDs, and harder for the half of Americans who don't have passports. The president claims that this is just an attempt to secure our elections, but let's be real, this is just another attempt to tilt the electoral deck in his favor. And if you want to make elections safer, we should stop threatening to nationalize elections, stop threatening to have ICE at voting locations. So why don't we save America from this bill and vote no?
Yeah, so again, although this is about the SAVE Act, the loophole that Democrats are talking about is that they don't want ICE at these voter spots. So that is how all of this has really been looped in together as far as why are we even talking about DHS funding and ICE? ICE is already funded. Well, like you just heard, there was a talking point including ICE at these areas known as soft spots according to the list of 10 demands. But you guys heard the married woman. A married woman. I haven't heard anything about married husbands, though. Not yet. It might be out there. And the other reason why this story is so compelling is because Democrat voters support voter ID. So that is why I think there's a lot of attention on this as well. There seems to be some conflicting data points here.
What do airplanes, Costco, alcohol, tobacco, entering a nightclub, and opening a checking account all have in common? You have to show your ID. We require identification for everyday activities. Why on earth would we not require it for something as sacred as determining the future of this republic? When the Save America Act becomes the law of the land, 3 simple things will be true. Number 1, everyone who shows up to vote in a federal election will have to show their photo ID. Number 2, states will only register American citizens to vote in federal elections. And number 3,
and this was the pushback that one lawmaker said DHS is going to force states to hand over the voters, the voter identification. That is in reference to what he just said, as far as you have to be a legal citizen to vote. You guys can go and read the SAVE Act. It's actually very short, but that fine little detail right there seems to be where a lot of the contention is, as far as overreach from the government looking into the state's voter rolls or the list.
3, states will actually have to remove non-citizens from the voter rolls.
Like I just said.
Every American, Republican, Democrat, or unaffiliated, wants to know that their vote counts and is not canceled out by someone who is here illegally. This bill ensures just that. The right to vote is precious, and the SAVE Act restores confidence, strengthens integrity, and protects the voice of every lawful American citizen. I'm confident my colleagues in the House will do the right thing and vote to secure our elections. So I address my colleagues in the Senate. Save America. Bring this bill to the Senate floor to debate. Own your position in front of the American people. You must use every tool at your disposal, including the talking filibuster, to ensure that this bill makes it to President Trump's desk. We cannot delay securing our elections and defending our republic.
Yeah, so make sure to please subscribe because we will be definitely watching that as far as the back and forth. That's going to be quite the clash.
They know the headwinds they're going into, 150 years of history about when one party has total control of all branches of government. And so when the gerrymandering thing didn't work out, now they're trying to figure out what can they pivot to try to steal the election, right? That's the SAVE Act. Oh, that's right. We'll get everyone to have to re-register across the entire country, even though, you know, the majority of states have photo ID. So they're...
Okay. So that's another argument there. Again, shifting the blame to the Trump admin for wanting to rig the elections. Now let's talk about this birth certificate stuff as far as it can be problematic to get one or maybe inconvenient.
I had to show ID the other day to pick up a package at FedEx. I need to do the same thing at UPS. I had to show my ID to get my daughter an MRI. What's wrong with it for voting?
Yeah.
Hey, here's a good question. What was the dumbest thing you can think of that you had to show your ID for and you never expected you had to show your ID? Because there's things out there we know you have to show your ID, but was there ever a time where you're like, I have to show my ID for that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it for voting. Most Democrats don't believe that
they're going to kick you out of the party.
Most Democrats. Most Democrats don't oppose voter ID. I think they oppose the SAVE Act though because of the birth certificate that it requires.
First thing I did after I took the oath of citizenship was I walked into the room next door and they registered me to vote.
But Democrats, there's no daylight between Republicans and Democrats. They don't believe non-citizens should be voting either. They just don't think that we should be adding layers and barriers to people who are already eligible.
Well, I mean, to John's point earlier, I mean, even some video games require you to show an ID to purchase. The list goes on. And I find, like, the comparison to Jim Crow, it reminds me of when Kamala Harris said...
Do you have to show video games still? I mean, show your ID for a video game? You know, back in the old days when you had to go into a store and get one, did you have to do that? I mean, do you still have to do that? I don't remember. I don't know.
In 2021, that rural Americans can't find the ability, a Xerox machine to photocopy their ID. It's just a bit insulting. I think it's racist. The other aspect, too, when we were talking about polling, this is minorities support this. I think 76% of black voters, 82% of Hispanic voters.
I have yet to find a politician who opposes this to give a direct response to the 71% of Democrats who support this. To include, well, it doesn't matter apparently if whether you're Hispanic or black either. Okay, so this is going to be from Kamala Harris's headquarters. Here's what she posted. They posted, I guess, the Gen Z media page. Again, this might sound like the exact same argument we've been hearing, but nonetheless, this is what we're doing here. We're trying to hear all the sides.
Here's who it will hurt. More than 140 million Americans don't have a passport, including Republicans, by the way. As many as 69 million women who follow the traditional practice of changing their name after marriage do not have a birth certificate that matches their legal name. Republicans know this and want to use that misinformation to block them from voting. This bill would eliminate the voter registration methods over 90% of Americans rely on, including online, mail-in, and DMV registration. In rural areas, Americans would be forced to drive 7 or 8 hours round trip just to show documents, and they would have to do it every single time they move. When Kansas tried a similar law, 32,000 eligible citizens were blocked from registering. 0 non-citizens were found because election officials had already verified their eligibility. Republicans call this voter ID. This is voter suppression. When they can't win on ideas, they try to win by blocking the ballot and taxing your right to vote.
All right. So if you live in a rural area, on average, you will have to drive 7 hours. I would definitely like to see that statistic, or that's the first time I've heard that argument. Shout out to rural America, wherever you are. But yeah. Let's move on here.
Fair and square, they don't want to, they want to cheat. They're hoping that this bill will pass and will make it so hard to vote that many American citizens will just give up. Not on my watch, not on the watch of my Democratic colleagues, and I hope there are some Republicans here who will stand with us on this. Too many people have fought too hard to secure the right to vote for everyone in this country. Generations of people have fought and died for that right. And we will not let Republicans use bullshit claims and lies about voter fraud to rip the right to vote away from American citizens.
And I apologize for that language. As you guys know, we typically don't do that on this channel. But just trying to show you, some people are very passionate about not passing this. Somebody said you have to show an ID to buy prunes. Are you talking about the fruit? I've never heard of that. Yeah, I am curious about that 7-hour round trip, though, in rural America.
Be no surprise that this bill would make voting more expensive, because passports, which millions of Americans don't have but would need to register to vote, cost $130. But beyond the cost, these Republican efforts to nationalize how we vote have nothing to do to safeguard our elections. Instead, they threaten the very fabric of American self-government. Now, ensuring the integrity of elections is not only legitimate, it is American. But integrity is achieved through the rule of law, through adherence to our Constitution.
Now, it should be pointed out, as far as the passport argument, again, just to be fair, that is true. A lot of Americans do not have a passport. But as far as the SAVE Act, I think the law is birth certificate or photo ID and passport, not either or.
As I hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, what I hear is the same racist, misogynistic trash, different decade. Republicans are invoking historical policies intended, let's be clear, to disenfranchise Americans, especially working people, women, students, indigenous people, and anyone who can't afford the burdens of a new bill. The Save America Act is yet another Republican attempt to intimidate and suppress the votes of anyone who threatens their extremist white supremacist agenda.
Okay. That is Representative Dalia Ramirez, who is on the House Oversight Committee and does have something called Melt Ice, which has to do with getting rid of ICE. She's not in favor of them. Now let's keep rolling through here. Again, these arguments just intrigue me, but you guys are hearing the same argument again, just like it's too expensive, it's problematic, it's inconvenient, disenfranchise people. If you agree with it, you agree with it. If you don't, you don't. I'm simply just trying to provide you guys the opportunity to hear all of these different clips so you know it's out there.
The SAVE Act would make it harder for millions of Americans to get registered to vote by requiring in-person registration at elections offices, government offices with government hours, y'all. This is a burden for caregivers and any hardworking American with a 9-to-5 job. Y'all, the SAVE Act is an unfunded mandate to silence voters. The goal of this bill is voter suppression, plain and simple. I urge my colleagues to vote no on this terrible bill.
So that's the first time I've heard that one. That was posted by RNC Research, as far as due to the fact that when you do have to apply, you have to do it during working hours, government hours. So that's that. And here's Tim Burchett.
Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Save America Act will block illegal immigrants and non-citizens from voting. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there being spread by the media and my friends across the aisle. House Republicans and President Trump want to protect the ballot box and ensure integrity in our elections across this great country. Only U.S. citizens should participate in the election process. The laws we create in Congress affect all Americans, and Americans should be the ones who select their leaders. The Save America Act put in place safeguards, Mr. Speaker, to prevent non-citizens from abusing our democratic process. United States citizens should be the people choosing our elected leaders, not illegal immigrants. Now, look, I'm not a drinker. Everybody knows that. But I know if I go to Weigel's in Knoxville, Tennessee, down on the corner of Emory Road and Tazewell Pike, and if I go in there to buy a six-pack or a can of Skull or a scratch-off, dadgummit, I gotta produce an ID. When you purchase a firearm, when you board a plane, when you open a bank account, if I put $100 in the bank and then right then and ask for 20 of it back, guess what? I gotta show a dadgum ID. Why can't you vote for an elected official without one, Mr. Speaker? This legislation codifies President Trump's executive action to secure our voter registration process, which has been a key platform of President Trump this term. Democrats are lying, Mr. Speaker, saying this bill prevents minorities from registering to vote. It protects their vote. It protects every American citizen's vote. And it disgusts me, and frankly, I find it racist to assume that minorities cannot obtain an ID. We need to have the guts to stand up and protect our dadgum elections, Mr. Speaker, and that means we need to pass the Save America Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, that is Tim Burchett. Yeah, so one thing I really love about reacting or watching these clips together, you really get to see the culture come out of some of our politicians, depending on if they're from a New Jersey, a New York, or Tennessee, or a California. Everything sort of blends together as far as certain phrases. Now, this is Senator Kennedy. Yesterday, we actually covered this. Yesterday, there was a lot of back and forth at the Homeland Security Oversight meeting. This was his reaction to that.
So, just your response to what we saw from MacGyver and some of the others in the room, but particularly her.
Well, I watched some of the hearing yesterday.
And to be clear, Congresswoman MacGyver asked Todd Lyons, how do you think Judgment Day will be going for you? Do you think you're going to hell? That is what he is responding to.
It reminded me of the game room in a mental hospital. This is not complicated. Illegal immigration is illegal. If no one is above the law, then how come people in our country illegally are? They're not. I support enforcing our immigration laws. I think most Americans do. Now, how you enforce those laws matters. They have to be enforced in accordance with equal protection, Harris, due process, and the reasonable suspicion standards set forth in Terry v. Ohio, a Supreme Court case. Now, you have the right to protest. I've seen some of the protesters. I know some of them are deeply weird. Some of them give off this... I don't know, I've got a freezer full of body parts in my basement vibe, but that's not against the law. You can be deeply weird in America. You can protest. What you can't do is protest violently. That too is against the law. And if you protest violently and act like a butthead and try to interfere with a cop, it's not going to end well. Even your Cocker Spaniel knows that. Here's a tip. Most cops, including ICE officers, will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff.
All right, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that comment and his response to protesters crossing that line. And again, today, Todd Lyons reaffirmed that ICE agents allow for protesting. They're okay with protesting. When you start to see the clashes back and forth, according to Todd Lyons and DHS, is when that line gets crossed. All right. This is going to be the last one we react to, just because, again, I don't want to put you guys through another 30 minutes of the exact same argument back and forth, but let's just go ahead and hear this.
Welcome to another day under Republican majority. I won't hold y'all long, but tonight we voted on the SAVE Act, which stands for Safeguarding Americans' Voter Eligibility. This is a bill that is a solution in search of a problem that does not exist. Non-citizens already can't vote. So to create a bill that requires proof of citizenship and denies forms of ID like state IDs and real IDs as being a sufficient way to prove that you are a citizen so that you can vote, this is going to disenfranchise millions of voters. It'll be costly, it'll be inconvenient. This will disenfranchise rural voters, military voters. This is Jim Crow, voter suppression, full stop, and that is why I voted hell no. But who's shocked by this? This is exactly what a dictator wants. They want to silence your voices, and they want to dilute our electoral power. They know they can't beat us fair and square, so they just keep trying to rig the system. And that is why I voted hell no on the SAVE Act. We should be focused, honestly, on how to really save you money, because every day, everything is just getting harder and harder to make ends meet.
Alrighty. So again, we heard more about the rural voters. That's a recent development and argumentation within the past day or two. We're starting to hear some of that, but the main one, of course, is the married women or anyone who's changed their name. It could be problematic. But yeah, okay. As of right now, again, we will be paying attention to what is going on with this DHS funding. Tomorrow, it's expected, of course, there's going to be the main vote, but unfortunately, not too much optimism to get the votes needed as of right now. It looks like Democrats are playing hardball, is what they say in the political space. And so we will see how far that goes. Again, I think the Trump administration was hoping, or Republicans were hoping, by downsizing in Minnesota, this would somewhat be a compromise, but it doesn't look to be the case. Alrighty. So again, if we get any more breaking news or something big happens, I will definitely be going live to update you on that. We did that yesterday when we had the St. Paul chase down the road. We actually covered that super quick. Within like as soon as it happened, we were live. And you guys were getting the facts very fast. So I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you guys for all your support. Thank you for being here. And I hope I was as fair as possible, showing all the different sides. I think by now you guys understand what the arguments are. And yeah, thank you guys again for everything. God bless all of you. Please pray for peace. We need that right now. Please pray for unity. And again, God bless all of you. Please seek Christ. And we will see you all later. Thank you guys for everything. See ya.